I want to go across now to Mumbai. Joining us from our Mumbai studios is Govindraj, Ethiraj. We've got Maru Kinai joining us also, and they've got some corporate voices and stock experts explaining what they're really looking for Mr. Chidambaram to deliver. Govindraj.
Thanks, Rahul. So, we've got very interesting views. I think you've summed it up there out in Delhi. There is a problem with subsidies, but more than subsidies, the question is where is the income coming from? You can go ahead and spend as much as you want, but if you can't balance it out, then we have a problem, and that's the problem that Chidambaram needs to address. Let's get a couple of views here. Mr. Haribhakti, let's begin with you. I think we all understand what the factors in this matrix are. What is the one that he can really, what are the buttons that he can really press, or should he press at this point of time?
He should make corporate India skate on ice. I for implementation, C for commitment, and E for expansion of the tax base, of the commitment to pay taxes, the commitment to investment, and the implementation of all the great ideas that have been around for a while. Particularly important is GST. If that happens, then we will have the twin engines identified in the survey, SMEs and jobs actually kicking.
Okay.
Mr. Pradhan, at this point, we've been talking about how Chidambaram has to walk the tight rope between the investor and the voter, which might not necessarily be the same. Do you think this budget, the kind of expectations that you have, is it going to rely more on populism, or is it going to be more friendly towards corporate India?
He has a great work to do on that, as a matter of fact, razor's edge, as one would say. But more importantly than that is what I look at is the implementation issue. Despite the fact that there have been so many budgets in the past and we have seen so many schemes coming in, how much implementation has happened? Unfortunately, what has happened is that there is no holistic reform, so to say. If we have the ports in the private sector ports now there, but there is no connectivity. If we had the cold chains for which the government had talked about, but there are how many cold chains have come in? So ultimately, if there is no holistic reforms, if it is not looked at it from the point of view of the totality of the picture, it will not result in anything. So you may talk about infrastructure, you may talk about agriculture, you may talk about ports, but unless it is merged together, unless there is something to say that, all right, at the end of the day, you are going to account for it and say that this is what I have done and this is what I have ensured, then only there will be a reform process, and that is the fruits of labor.
Right. Mr. Haribhakti, you were mentioning that you were quite pleased with the economic survey. Has that kind of reassured or at least raised expectations as far as India Inc. is concerned?
Absolutely. India Inc. seems confident today that we will see a 150 basis points reduction in interest rates because of the twin engines of inflation control and rate reduction by and they will act in tandem. We are convinced that there is seriousness about fiscal compression.
That's also an implicit argument that's what's holding back growth, higher interest rates and inflation. Are those the things?
There are supply side constraints, and there are unimplemented infrastructure projects, and basically it all boils down to implementation. And I think the focus is coming back on that. What we have seen in the last quarter is a lot of implemented ideas. Diesel price enhancement, railway freight increase, not causing inflation.
Back to a real world after 2 years of...
Because fiscal compression is the big driver of inflation. Now that is becoming very clear. So if it is compressed further, if from 5.3 we can get to 4.9, it will be big.
So you talked about the skating on ice, thin ice or whatever ice, but what are you looking for specifically from the finance minister's speech? So you touched upon GST, that's one.
Right.
What else?
I'm looking at the building of silos as a big game changer, because that is the infrastructure which is going to destroy our 70 million grain mountain. I'm looking at action on gold, dematerializing gold, making it a liquid pledgeable security.
So should they be increasing import tax?
I'm not in favor of increasing import tax. That's a very limited impact idea. The real idea has to be that how do people who are hoarding this gold get it out and make use of it.
Well, clearly, Rahul, the sentiment here from Mumbai is that as far as India Inc. is concerned, going by the economic survey and what the finance minister has been doing in the past few months, it is clearly very positive. The expectations are high. I wonder what the Aam Aadmi feels at this point, Rahul.
It's very interesting. The stock markets have opened about 450 points up, very buoyant in the build-up to this budget, Sunil.